Oh, what's going on? Check me out though. We got the watermelon with the black seeds in it. Yeah, not that seedless. How do you have seedless fruit? If it don't got no seeds in it, then how did they grow in the first place? You think about that. We're gonna get to the intro real quick, and we're gonna come back and talk about love. Well, peace. Rami Salam El. I thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Okay. A lot of times I try to communicate different facts, different evidences to show and prove, without a shadow of a doubt. So that way it can't be no argument that black people, so-called black people, African Americans, Negroes, people of color, that we're Moors. But I've learned in making these videos that you can bring all this information, the facts, the evidence to, black people, to African Americans, and they'll still say, yeah, we ain't Moors. I don't believe that. That's just a religion, and I'm not trying to get down with that. And what I've come to understand is, on one side, there is how I'm communicating the message, how I'm putting the message out there, and the clarity of that. And then on the other side is how people receive the message and whether they choose to receive it or reject it. I can't control what another person does. I can't control how they accept the message or if they reject it. That's on them. What I can focus on is how I communicate. And so this video, I'm going to try to communicate this message in a bit of a different way. Everyone can agree that we have, as human beings, as an individual, an identity. Your name. That's specific to you as the person. And even if you don't have a name, that in itself is an identity. It's just, it is anonymous, or Jane Doe or John Doe, for example. But let's just work that you do have a name. Okay, that name represents who you are, your identity. With that name, with that identity, has certain associations, certain connections. Your family, where you're from, culture, language, history. All of these things are connected to you through this name, and to myself also. Okay. Now here's where I feel is the mix-up. People, I feel like we believe as so-called black people that we don't have to choose that identity of being Moors. It's like, yeah, we have a name, but we don't have to choose to go by that name. We don't have to accept that that's our name. Just like we don't have to accept being Moors. True, that's where our choice is. But us being Moors is a fact. So let's understand the difference. Us being Moors is a fact. We are Moors. So-called black people, African Americans, Negroes are actually Moors, Moorish people. The choice, or our opinion, comes into play on whether or not we want to accept that identity. Whether we want to say, yes, I am accepting and I am agreeing that yes, I am a Moor. And if we choose that identity, then, we're bringing that on. Or we could not choose to accept that identity and not choose to use that identity as who we are. That's the choice. Now, so far, we haven't chose to accept who we are and our identity as Moors. Instead, we've been choosing to accept identities of European names and names from slave masters or slaveholders at that. That's not even a question. If you're walking around and you're an African person, a person from Africa, melanated, copper toned, brown skin, and you're walking around with a name that comes from a European family that has European history and lineage connected to that identity, then understand the choice that you're making. That's kind of like identity theft, because that's not really who you are. You're choosing to say, yes, I'm taking this identity and this is what I'm going to identify as. But understand that just because you're choosing to identify as that doesn't mean that's who you truly are. But bigger than that, understand what comes with choosing that identity. You can do whatever you want to do. My point is to think about and understand what comes with choosing the identity of black, or choosing to identify individually as the names that was placed on us: Johnson, Smith, Robertson, anything that's Jones, that are European slaveholder names. When we choose to identify, black is the general term that was that identity that represents a slave, a Negro. And understand that when we choose to accept that identity, that with that identity are different associations, different connections, different histories that comes with those identities, that names, those labels that we're choosing to accept and put on us. And then when we're doing that, when we're making that choice, that we're accepting what comes with that. That's the real issue that's really going on, and why, we say that we don't call ourselves black, or we don't identify by that, but we choosing to identify as Moors, is because when we say Moors, there's connections, and there's associations, and there's rankings and conditions and a status that you have that comes when you identify as that, because you are being yourself. That's the real issue. I hope you understand that. And I'm telling you that, I hope you understood that just from a common sense level, without me having to go to a dictionary. But I do want to bring a definition into play. And this is more so for that person that's watching right now and is saying, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we call ourselves Moors, we still gonna get treated the same way. That's your opinion. That is not a fact. You gotta understand that. When you hear that, it doesn't matter if you call yourself a Moor, or you call yourself a black man, or a Hebrew. It don't matter. They're gonna treat you like a nigga no matter what. That's your opinion. Because let me tell you this. Let's just say in the last 10 years, it's 2018, not even in the last year, have you seen 10,000 people? Have you seen 5,000 people? Have you seen 1,000 people walk out and say in unison or in a group that, all in as a community, saying that we're Moors? And this is the identity that we're choosing to identify ourselves by, and this is what we want you to respect us as? Have you seen that? Can you point and say for fact and show with evidence, yeah, that community tried to say they were Moors, and look what happened. They got treated just like niggas, just like Negroes, just like black people. You can't say that. If you had evidence, please show it. But I haven't seen it. To me, that's the fear in us. Because this is the truth. And let me read it for you. This is Black Laws Dictionary. And I'm reading the word status. Status is representing standing, state, or condition, the legal relation of an individual to the rest of the community, the rights, duties, capacities, and incapacities which determine a person to a given class. A legal personal relationship, not temporary in its nature, nor terminable at the mere will of the parties. It also means a state, because it signifies the condition or circumstances in which one stands with regard to his property. So, status, your status, and your status, your legal, political status, it determines your relationship not only with the community of people that you're living in, but also with the property itself, the land, your relationship, your legal relationship with the land itself. So when we identify, and our identity comes with a status, everyone's identity, it does not matter who you are, every identity comes with a status. If you don't have any identity, you get hit with Jane Doe. That's your identity, and it has a certain status. Every identity has a status. And when we choose the identity of black, if it was some identity sitting in front of the table, 2 ID cards, and you say, this is the one I want to pick, and you choose the one that's black, African American, Negro, well, you don't have no relationship to the land. You don't know where you come from. Legally, you don't have no relationship that you can stand on and say this is me. These are the rights. These are the obligations that I have to this land. It's not there. In fact, you're choosing to say, I'm a slave. That's what's happening legally as it relates to the U.S., the United States, the quote unquote United States of America. Now, if we choose and when we choose to identify, to pick up that identification of a Moorish American, that status, that legal relationship to the community, to the United States of America and all nations is much different than black. Our relationship to the land that we're on here right now in North America is much different than the relationship that we have with it as black people. And this is the fact of the matter. It's not me saying this as something I want you to join and, pay money to, and this is how it's going to. No, it's not a trick. It's not a game. It's not a hustle. It's not a scheme. Got to understand this is applying to everyone. Everyone has a status. Everyone has an identity. That identity has a status, and that status sets your place in society. And so we got to get right. We have to understand who we are, to know our true identity, so that we can take our proper place in this society, in this world, in this universe. You feel me? And with that, I say much love. Keep shining. Know who you are. Find out about who you truly are. Because it's not black, Negroes, or colored. You're not an illegal immigrant from my Mexican and Latin and Southern American and Central American brothers and sisters either. They are Americans too, but that's a whole nother topic. We're going to get to that next time. Much love. And that's it, yeah. Noble Drew Ali. Make sure you study. Noble Drew Ali. DREWALI. Peace and love.